Hey guys, Micah here, and welcome to the first episode of Montclair. Just a little bit about me. I've been playing City Skylines for like 2 years, and finally decided to that I that I had advanced enough to try to do a series. Obviously it's a pretty steep learning curve, this game, and I just really like watching City Skylines series, and finally decided that this project I was gonna actually put out there. So hope you guys like it, and I'll see you next time. No, I'm just kidding. That's the end of the video. You're like, these are terrible. So just a little bit about this series. So basically, the inspiration for the series is that I really wanted to make a super walkable city. I wanted the focus to be pedestrians. I wanted it to be like kind of actually difficult to get around by car, very limited parking, but really good public transit and super walkability. Lots of walking paths, lots of pedestrian only areas. And I also am going to experiment a little bit with like the structure of the public transit and trying to basically like, build high density right around like metro stops, things like that. I'm also later on going to experiment with like using the metro versus using light rail trams, like metro to get you into an area and then light rail to get you around that area, which I think is kind of a cool concept. So yeah, that's going to be like the major force behind this series. Right now I'm building like this pedestrian mall, I guess, kind of a mall area called the Walk, and it's going to be like mixed zoning, like commercial and office and residential, pretty high density, and yeah, it's a little bit. Sorry, I got distracted by that weird camera movement. A little bit about the map too, before I go too far into what I'm doing on screen right now. Is I decided for the first time to start with a completely blank map. I had to start. You probably saw in the very beginning of the video that there's a little bit of water, which is because you have to have water in your starting square. So I made a totally blank map, unlocked all 81 squares. Got rid of that little bit of water. I have highway connections, but that's it. And then I've got the mod that allows you to add ship and air connections later. Or, you know what? I think I do have the air connections. It allows you to add ship connections. So I've got air, rail, and highway already. Just kind of one on each side of the map. So it does limit a little bit, like where I can connect my highways to, but I think that's totally workable. And I do connect my highways later on in this series, not in this video, I don't think. So what I wanted to do was like kind of build the city and the terrain simultaneously, like concurrent with each other. And I know that that's not realistic at all because cities are built like into the terrain. But I don't know. I was kind of sick of using maps and then like having to do a lot of terraforming and do a lot of like, like consideration and manipulation of the city based on like what the map looks like. And I thought, why not have the idea for the city, start building that out and build the landscape into that idea. So that's kind of what I did. So this is like the inspiration, like geographically would be like, it feels like kind of a Midwestern American kind of newer city, maybe with like more recent like tech industry or something along that line. Like it's like a high-tech green walking city. Feels like kind of the Midwest, maybe like in Minnesota or I don't know, Ohio. I could just keep naming Midwestern states: Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. So yeah, that's kind of like the geographical. So it's going to be like a river city, lots of rivers, so I'm going to build highways into the city. And I actually, I've recorded a lot of the gameplay already at the time of recording this audio and the time of release. So I do kind of know what happens. Not to spoil anything, but I build a freeway at the end of this episode that I think I'm going to maybe very soon in my actual gameplay, but later on in the world of these videos, get rid of that highway, and because it kind of, you'll see it later, but I'll talk about it more in depth later, but it kind of obstructs a lot of what I'm kind of aiming for. It's hard to like keep, because our American cities and cities in general are so oriented around cars, and even older walkable cities in Europe and stuff have like confusing street layouts, and so I wanted to do this a little more grid-like, and a little more like planned, but also super walkable and like nice. So anyway, this is the walk here. I'm putting in some landscaping, and I'm doing it like a little bit freeform. Like I didn't want it to be super uniform, because I liked the idea of it being like feeling like nature, kind of like a little bit random or chaotic, even though it's planters. I just didn't want it to be like every 10 feet there's a tree. Kind of thing. So I wanted to feel like a little bit more incorporating nature into the a very like constructed area. So, and then I'm putting down these benches, these park people benches, so that this will be a really high traffic, really desirable area to hang around in and live in. So yeah, the inspiration for this is kind of there's some big like outdoor like mall areas that I'm specifically thinking about that I actually hate. The big one being like 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica in Los Angeles, where I live. If anyone's ever been to that, it's really terrible, but because it's a mall, it's just like a big crowded mall. The other kind of inspiration would be like Fremont Street in Old Vegas, which again is like it's super fun. That's where I stay usually if I go there, but it's also a little bit of a shit show, and a little like I don't know, not like corporate. I guess 3rd Street Promenade is more corporate, but so I wanted to do something vaguely based on those areas, but like more natural, more interesting, and less like super less like just Barnes and Nobles. And I was using the plural. I know it's not called Barnes and Nobles, Barnes and Noble stores, less just like Cheesecake Factories. And although I do think I plopped down a Cheesecake Factory at some point on the walk, because it's a good asset, and it just it looks modern and clean, so forgive the Cheesecake Factory. And there's whatever. There's nothing wrong with Cheesecake Factory. You're welcome to enjoy a meatloaf mountain and a slice of Oreo cheesecake if you want to. No judgment. All right. So while I pop down these buildings, maybe I'll do a little fast forward for you guys, and I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so you saw me put down a bunch of different stadiums and finally land on this modest soccer stadium. I really like the design of this one. It's tight. It's like not tight, like tight. It's like small, compact. So what I'm doing here is like pretty much the only parking in this entire area, and maybe some of the only parking in the whole city. I figured if there's a stadium, there needs to be some parking, and you could also use this to kind of drive to the walk and stay there for the day. But again, it's called the walk, not the drive. So you're supposed to walk around it. And then, I also forgot to talk about the tram running down the center of the walk. Not much to say about it. Pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted there to be a few stops along that way because it's like a 10-block long kind of area, and I thought it was a cool idea to be able to kind of hop on that train. All the public transit is I don't know if I've shown that on screen yet, but I make it all free in my policies. So again, I really want people to take advantage of public transit in this city. So yeah, you can just kind of hop on that line and go to the other side of the walk or whatever. If you get tired or if you are unable to walk down the whole thing. Yeah, and then, the stadium, and then there's going to be, after I place this parking and all these trees, then I'm going to start, I think, after that, I start on the landscaping a little bit, building in some rivers nearby this area, because this is going to be kind of like the edge of downtown. The idea is that, like, the one highway kind of comes into downtown, drops you off in the middle of everything, also near a train station, and then this is kind of right on the edge of it, and then right next to this would be actually a little college campus, and then the waterfront of the river. So that's kind of the idea. And anyway, there's some assets that I really like that I put down on the walk, like I love those, like up in the top corner, you see it occasionally, those residential buildings, the really cool modern ones with the vegetation coming out of them. I forget what they're called in the workshop. I can get the name of that, so I can recommend it to you guys. But those seem like super modern and perfect for this city and for this area. And then there are some buildings that I plopped down here that are kind of ugly, that I might eventually replace because they're a little bit, I don't know, they're just like gray and drab, and I don't want that in my city. It's a nice, cool, modern city. You can also see that I put these, I did this a while ago, but I put those underpass streets, the one-way streets underneath, so that this area doesn't completely jam everything. Like, I don't want everyone to have to go around it if they're driving. Sorry, my neighbors are starting their car. I don't know if you can hear that or not. But you might hear some noise because I live in a pretty dense area of Los Angeles. So, and that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so I'm starting to figure out the freeway right now, and this again. Well, I changed it a few times, but this will. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to leave this in because it's hilarious, but coming up after I start this little freeway design, I do a river, and then I flood the river. Here we go. Oh man, you know what? I'm gonna show you this in super fast forward because it all gets redone, and I'll explain why in a second. I'll be right back. here, I flood my city. I tried to, part of doing your rivers in game is that the water levels can be a little tricky, and so I tried to raise the sea level a little bit, and I ended up flooding the whole city. And while I was trying to figure it out, I kept the game running for some reason, and all of my buildings died and went away. So here's me trying to see when's the last time I autosaved, and I didn't lose very much. I basically just lost those freeways in the river. I just thought it was funny to show you that. So here's me still trying to figure out a way to get around it, and then noticing that all my buildings are gone. Yay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna restart the game from. Look how quick it loads. That's nice. Man, it loads so much slower now. Alright, so here's me I guess I did have some of that freeway still. So here's me restarting that river. And I'm going to show you this just because it's better the second time, actually. I decided to split it up over there. Wind it around here a little bit. Yeah, I think I improved this river a lot. And I actually I definitely make some changes to this whole area. As time goes on, I make part of that river a lot wider eventually. So here's me very carefully figuring out the water levels. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen sometimes kind of the south part of, I'll call the top north. So the very south part of of what we have so far in the city is this freeway that kind of comes in and bypasses the city. So eventually I'm going to put a freeway that forks off into this freeway, and then one that just drops you off right in the center of downtown. And that's the freeway that I'm talking about that I kind of want to get rid of because it's right along the river, and I do some really cool things eventually on the other side of that river, and I think I just want that riverfront property available. And this is a walking city, so I don't need to be too concerned with like having great freeway access. Excuse me, you know what I mean? So, yeah, you can let me know what you think. I haven't done it yet, so even though I'm a few episodes ahead of what you're seeing, let me know if you think I should get rid of that freeway or not. I'm trying to figure out like a good, logical way to enter and exit the city and get around and stuff, but that still very much adheres to my plan of making it a walkable city. Also, what I'm doing here, which I'm sure you probably understand, but maybe you don't, because it took me a while to figure out this method, is I'm just doing everything raised, like force a raised piece, and then I can screw with the heights later, which I think is really helpful, because then you can just plan out all of your roads and stuff, all of your freeways and entrances and exits and the rail and everything, and then you can deal with the heights after that. So figuring that trick out really helped me deal with freeways and stuff, because it can be a pain. So here's me building that little entrance into the downtown area, and it'll eventually fork off from this main freeway that comes in from the side of the city. So I'm building a street for it to connect to, and then the freeway will just kind of end on this street and just drop you off right in the middle of downtown, which I really like. I think that's a great way to kind of enter a city, especially one where the freeways are not supposed to play a big part in how you get around. So it kind of just dumps you, and there's going to be a train station right here next to this entrance, and then you can get around on light rail or walking. You can literally just, I don't know where you're going to park because I didn't give you any parking. Maybe I should put some parking right in this area. Never thought of that. But yeah, you can park and walk around or get on the light rail or the metro. So yeah, I really like that. All right, I'm going to finish off this episode with just a real quick speed ramp of the rest of this little freeway build, and then that'll be it for the day. So I'll come back in a second just to say goodbye, and yeah, enjoy. Okay, here's this kind of freeway fork that I was talking about. I'm gonna build that, and this will eventually hook up to the very edge of the city, kind of far away. Hard to get maybe a feel for where we are exactly, but we're kind of in the top corner of the map with this downtown area. And we've got a lot of space because I got 81 tiles, so it's gonna be hopefully a really long, intricate series. I have a lot of ideas and for like suburbs and stuff, and I really do want to take this walkability concept and bring it out into the suburbs and make every area walkable and kind of its own. Part of doing that would be making everything kind of like having its own feel, each part of town, so that you can stick around. You could go days without ever leaving your little neighborhood because you've got everything you need. I think that is important for walkability. But then also it's easy to get to another place if you need to go somewhere else or want to because you're bored. Sometimes you get bored. You can also see part of that when I wasn't talking, I added a lot of pedestrian paths kind of in between the few blocks that I've built out so far. And I wanted there to be kind of a secret passageway kind of feel to how you can get around the city, like between the buildings, off the street, so you're not interacting with traffic at all, which I think is unique and kind of important if you want to be able to feel safe as a pedestrian. I really like the idea of being able to go like kind of in these pedestrian-only alleyways, and eventually those get built out into kind of plazas too, which I think is really fun and important to also for a walkable city to have like a lot of plazas that kind of like take you between areas. So overall it's like I don't know, I had a lot of fun like thinking about how to execute this idea and make it like, I don't know, make it realistic, but also like something that I've never seen before in a city, like extreme walkability. And again, maybe I fall short sometimes. If you guys have some suggestions or things that you've seen in real cities that like that you found really cool that are like that help pedestrians specifically, like a pedestrian-friendly city, I would love to hear about it because I'm not like a city planner by trade or anything like that. So this is all just kind of new to me. Like how to make this actually function really well. So send me your ideas. Put them in the comments. And you can also tweet at me. At Micah J. Gordon is my Twitter handle, and you'll see I do a lot of. I'm a comedy writer, so that's my main profession. So I do a lot of that on there. Excuse me, I'm pouring myself. The last little thing I'll cover before this episode ends is this little river area. This kind of, I just wanted to like a really kind of creek, like nature preserve kind of area that turns into kind of a central park for the downtown. It has kind of like a DC-ish feel to me. I've been to DC once ever, but I remember the like rivers there specifically. The kind of like swampy rivers. I really like that feel. So I added one here, and the water doesn't really flow that naturally, so I had to add some water sources. Okay, so this is where I'll end up. I'll leave you here, and then I'll do a couple cinematics. And if you like this series, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to like it, to subscribe to my channel. Again, I'm just getting this off the ground. This is my very first attempt at this, so if you're into it and you want to tell someone about it, I'd love to see if people are interested and want to tell their friends. And so that's all for now. Got nothing else to plug, no like Patreon or anything yet. I might set that up eventually if enough people are interested in what I'm doing. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas, because this is all just kind of speculative off the top of my head. I think this would be cool to do. So please let me know what you think of everything, and thanks so much for watching. So one quick note about my cinematics before I leave you. They're not good. These early ones leave a lot to be desired. I apologize. I was using the automatic cinematic camera, and obviously it doesn't do a very good job. I finally got the one where I can actually control it and plan my own cinematics. So obviously they get a lot better. And there's a few buildings in here that you're going to see in areas of town that you haven't seen built yet. So that's also a negative for these cinematics. Anyway, if you love cinematics and need them at the end of every episode, then stick around for some crappy ones. If you don't care that much about cinematics, then maybe hold off on this episode and the next one or two until I get better at doing them. Anyway, I apologize again for that, but hope you liked it. And thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.